Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to see everybody here. Welcome. My name is Avni, and I lead strategy and operations at Global School Leaders. We are so excited that you've joined us today, whether this is your first session of the day or your third. And it is inspiring to see so many people who believe that school leadership matters. We really appreciate your engagement with this important topic, as well as your engagement with each other, with other school leaders, teachers, education officers, policymakers, researchers, donors, more. Before we begin, just here are a few guidelines to ensure the session runs smoothly. So first, please select the interpretation option at the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred language to follow the discussion smoothly. The session is available in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and French. The session will last for 60 minutes, which includes dedicated time for Q&A at the end of the session. Please use the Q&A feature to ask questions. The panelists will try to answer as many questions as possible. You can also use the Q&A to engage with other attendees or share insights. As attendees, you will remain on mute throughout the session to avoid background noise. And a gentle reminder to keep your questions and comments respectful in the Q&A, ensuring a positive and productive environment. I am really thrilled about today's discussion on trusting and empowering school leaders. It sounds like a simple idea, but how to do it is quite complicated. The recommendation in the GEM report talked about the important balance between autonomy and accountability, resources, and support. We are so grateful to have this amazing lineup of speakers help us unpack and understand this balance. Folawe Omikunle is a GSL board member and the former CEO of Teach for Nigeria. She will be moderating today's panel. She started her career as a Montessori educator in Nigeria and continued to work on teacher and leader development, and then helped to build and grow Teach for Nigeria over the last decade. Folawe was named in 2017 as 100 of the most influential young Nigerians. She's deeply committed to tackling the challenges in the education sector in Nigeria and more broadly, and we are so lucky to have her incredible wisdom on our board. She is joined today by Herbert Lima, the Secretary of Education in Sobral, Phuti Ragophala, a former school leader from South Africa, Kiran Sethi, the founder of Riverside Learning Center in India, and Iwan Syahril, the Director General of Early Childhood Education, Primary Education, and Secondary Education in the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education in the Republic of Indonesia. You'll hear more about each of them throughout the course of this discussion. Thank you to each of you for joining us, and over to you, Folawe.
Thank you so much, Avni, for that very warm welcome and introduction. And a very good afternoon from Lagos to you all, wherever you're joining from. I'm thrilled about today's panel discussion, and I'm thrilled about this summit. I'm particularly honored to be moderating such an incredible panel of education leaders and innovators. And as Avni mentioned, I'm Folawe Omikunle. And really, the theme that we're going to be discussing today is something that is a topic that is central to my career: empowering and supporting school leaders to make impactful and lasting changes. And when I think about trusting and empowering school leaders, it resonates with me, particularly when I think about my experience with seeing how school leaders were front center at transformation that happened during the pandemic. And we saw how we had no choice but to just trust the school leaders. And in communities where this happened, we saw the impact across schools. And really, it's the empowering school leaders is not just about handing over the reins of power, but really it's about giving them autonomy, resources, structured support, as we've seen in the report, and giving them all these resources that they need to support their students, their school community, their teachers to thrive. And so as we explore this delicate balance of autonomy with accountability and support, I'm really excited today, to be hearing from a range of very diverse perspectives from our distinguished panelists. And so to get us started, I would like to invite each one of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves. And perhaps we would start with Herbert Lima, if he's not here. Herbert, if you can hear me, could you please briefly share a bit about your background and just your journey in relation to empowering school leaders? Okay. I doubt that Herbert has been able to join us. But while we're waiting for Herbert, Phuti, maybe perhaps we can move on to you. If you could please briefly introduce yourself and share a bit about your journey in relation to empowering school leaders.
Oh, yes. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Phuti Ragophala, a retired school principal from Pulamadwo Primary School here in South Africa. So I'm here to share with you some good practices based on my journey towards becoming a pioneer in a digital technology and how autonomous leadership played a role. That's myself in short.
Thank you very much, Phuti. And perhaps we can now move on to Iwan.
Thank you, Folawe. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Iwan Syahril. I'm the Director General for Schools in Indonesia. I'm overseeing more than 400,000 schools with more than 50 million students in Indonesia, consisting of more 17,000 islands in a very super decentralized government as well, 552 autonomous local government. So investing in school leaders for us in Indonesia is a necessity, not just a choice. This is something that we need to do to be able to make a difference to the lives of every student. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Iwan. Over to you, Kiran.
Hi, everybody. Namaste from India. I'm sort of in this sort of journey of figuring out school leadership for the last 23 years. I run a school called the Riverside School in India. And over the years, just been, understanding and listening and figuring out what it takes to do leadership. And especially school leadership is such a tricky yet rewarding role that everybody plays. So happy to share the little I've learned over the years with the rest of the wonderful panelists.
Lovely. Thank you so much. I'm going to come back to you now, Phuti. And you already sort of mentioned your experience with pioneering digital technology in South Africa. If you could please share with us what led to this part of your journey and how did autonomy play a role in what you were able to accomplish?
Yes, thank you so much. As a public servant or as a public teacher, you couldn't implement or start project without the mandate from the Department of Education. You couldn't do anything without being told to do whatever you are thinking about. And however, after I was appointed as a school principal in 2015, in 2005, I realized that for myself to meet the goals and the plans that I want for this community, I need to be an autonomous leader. I need to lead from my heart, from my mind. I need to lead the way I think. At the end of the day, I'll call it a good journey. So I started by conducting a situational analysis in that environment to check what kind of learners, what kind of household are here, are the parents working, what kind of what are the resources, so that when we teach in the classrooms, we match sort of our lessons, objectives with the resources that are available in that community. Resources like mines, resources like farming, they are around. Why can't we teach the way the resources are in that village? And in the curriculum, there was no mines or whatever. So that's where, as a principal, you have to put your foot down to say, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. So early those 20 or 25 years back, we were trained for the first time to use a keyboard. So I was one of those being inspired by the then Minister of Education, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. So I was one of those who were trained. Coming back, I had to introduce that to learners and teachers so that it goes on and on. But however, due to the restrictions of Department of Education during those days, where they will say cell phones are not allowed in the schoolyard, and so on and so on. And by that time, I already realized the enormous content in the cell phone itself. A very small gadget with so many contents that learners can benefit. I tried to introduce that, not knowing that I'm putting my food in the hot water. And after realizing that nobody's supporting that, I partnered with the nearby University of Limpopo in South Africa, to use their media lab so that every Saturday, every school holidays, we go to school and work and teach these young ones on how to utilize the tech tools to learn more, to augment, let alone Department of Education. They didn't want to, I mean, they were not there. I did it, and it put me under stress because I thought I was doing something that is awkward. I was always depressed and given many names.
Yeah, thank you so much, Phuti. I would stop you there, but this is really just inspiring to hear so far. And thank you for sharing those examples. I would come back to you, Phuti. I would now move on to Kiran. And Kiran, I mean, you're founder of Riverside Learning Center. You know, you've done a lot of work in training and supporting school leaders and also owners. It'll be great to hear your reflections on autonomy and, you know, perhaps maybe just also piggyback on some of the examples that Phuti has shared. What do you think that autonomy, you know, how do you think that school leaders need autonomy, and what comes to mind? And also what comes in the way, you know, of school leaders in really exhibiting their autonomy? Over to you, Kiran.
Well, Phuti is a rare breed, I have to say. I wish there were more Phutis in the world who, you know, take ownership and take the accountability and autonomy that really should shape the work we do. But I think from the experiences I've had, autonomy can be a double-edged sword, you know, because it comes with so much responsibility and weight of that ownership. So I feel school leaders, whilst they might crave autonomy, it's difficult for them to really receive that level of freedom that comes with the responsibility that needs to go with it. So I've seen that very often the weight of taking decisions comes in the way of really taking autonomy and taking that sense of accountability. So I've seen leaders, and I keep saying, while they may be good people, they don't often do good work, and good work comes with such different series of expectations. Being able to own the decision you make, and that's not easy. It's a lot of weight that you carry, and it's difficult to be able to take all of that in the work that you do. So I've seen leaders struggle with how much autonomy is too much, and I find that I think they do better with the direction that is offered, where implementation and accountability can be not completely theirs to own. They work better with the direction that is given and then saying, can I do the best with that? Rather than being expected to take the decisions for everybody's, you know, well-being, responsibility, accountability, audit. It's a lot of work. So I find that leaders struggle with the amount of decision-making that comes with the autonomy. So I find it's unfair to put that much weight and and burden on leadership, because it comes with so much of responsibility. And I think the work on a daily basis is so heavy in itself that it's unfair to put even this onto leaders. That's why I say Phuti is a rare breed who takes it on to herself.
you.
And of course, where that happens, you have magic. But I keep okay for not complete autonomy, but giving direction, allowing some sort of support mechanisms like a safety net to give leaders with that ability to do the work, which is tough anyway. So I've seen that leadership, because you don't often become leadership and get the skills of leadership immediately. You have to go into that.
Yeah.
That takes a while. So I think we have to be a little gentler and with what the expectations of leadership really are.
Thank you so much, Kiran, for that submission. And to your point, I hear you very loud and clearly, guided autonomy, because it comes with massive, massive responsibility. And welcome, Herbert. We're very happy to have you join us this afternoon. If you could, briefly introduce yourself, and I think you've also just like come into the meat of the discussion. I would really like for you to share a bit about your background, but then also share with us, particularly in your work as Secretary of Education in Sobral. It would be good to share why you chose to focus on autonomy for school leaders. It'll also be helpful to hear what drove and what informed this focus, and what does it truly mean to trust and empower school leaders. Over to you, Herbert. Okay, we just lost Herbert, so maybe I will just move on to Iwan. Iwan, if you can hear me, I think this is now the part where I would really love to hear how can government and educational authorities foster trust with school leaders while balancing the accountability. And perhaps it would help if you could share some examples of strategies that have worked, and perhaps in Indonesia or globally, that you have seen. Yes, I think it will be helpful to really hear your own thoughts and reflections on this conversation. Over to you, Iwan.
Thank you, Folawe. So the first thing I'd like to underline one of the key ideas in the recently published UNESCO GEM report, right? That we've been talking for this day about leadership, and it says the first sentence in the key in the executive summary is education leaders are not just managers; they are change agents. I underline change agents there because there is a difference between managers, just like maintaining the administrative duties, basically keeping the status quo, like the philosophy of the civil servant that Phuti was saying earlier, and change agents. So this is like totally different. They should be innovators. They should reimagine how solutions can be provided, and therefore the autonomy should be given. So I want to underline three things. The first one is clarity of purpose. As a system, we need to communicate and over-communicate what is the purpose of why we're doing what we're doing to all stakeholders. So this should be led by, of course, like all the leaders at the system levels. And therefore, when we provide autonomy to the school leaders, they know, oh, okay, I have the right to innovate, but actually our destination together as a nation, as a system, is towards this. And for us, that is about student learning, of course. And we hyper focus on foundational learning because, after COVID, learning loss to learning recovery. So we focus on student learning outcomes on foundational competencies, literacy, and numeracy. So that's number one. So autonomy, but we have a clear direction. We need to have a clarity of purpose at the system level. Number two is system alignment. So the curriculum, the assessment, and all initiatives that we do should actually strengthen this purpose, the message. So the curriculum allows teachers to teach at the right level. allow teachers and schools to do differentiated learning for their students according to their context, according to their needs. And also assessment should really focus on the foundational competencies. This is like our clear purpose, right? So then we need to align all of this. If not, that will be mixed signal confusing for the principals themselves. And number three, and this is perhaps what we've done in Indonesia, we leverage technology to reach the message and also to reach all the school communities to be on the tech platform. And the platform is a very user-friendly because it can be used with a mobile phone in a very low connectivity area like 2G. It's still working. And with the most outdated phone itself, it's still working. So very simple platform, but the platform has, there are three main platforms. The first platform for teachers to share, to learn about new ideas about student-centered learning, differentiated instruction, social-emotional learning, and so on. And then they also can share with each other, upload best practices, and create professional learning communities online. So that's teacher platform. The second one is platforms that use for reducing the administrative burden for the administrators. Why? Because we want our school principals and administrators to focus on student learning. Back to the first one, the purpose, right? So we have managed up to reducing 5 hours of administrators' time per week so far that they can reallocate for student learning purposes, either strengthening teacher professional learning community at their school to talk about the student struggles or something else that related to student learning. The third platform is we call this education or school report card platform, where we help principals to look at their school data based on the national assessment data on literacy, numeracy, and also school climate. Why? Because again, they can use this data, very simple sense making for the, not like researchers version, but a very layman version. So then they can act on the data and use for planning and budgeting and therefore solving the problem. So let me give you an example. It's color coded, red, yellow, and green. Red means they have problems. Yellow is in between, and green, they are doing okay. So if they click on the red button on the priority indicators, 8 of them, they will go to the possible root causes of that problem that they can discuss with their teachers, even with parents. And then if they click one of the root causes, they can have like possible recommendation of solution. And the solutions geared towards, again, focusing on foundational competencies and focusing on student learning outcomes. So this is the way that we, again, purpose, alignment of all initiatives, and technology to leverage to simplify and help even teachers in remote locations, principals in remote locations can actually make sense of where we are going. So when we give them the autonomy, the ecosystem is moving toward the same direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iwan. And really the progressive work that is happening in Indonesia is really inspiring. And just listening to you, really, I can think about the enormity that Kiran was referring to of the task, that school leaders are faced with. But I particularly liked your reference of, school leaders being change agents. They're just not officials. And I think that is very important as we think about, these special breed of individuals. I'll now move on to Phuti. And Phuti, really, when I think about all that Kiran has shared alongside Iwan, but particularly your agency, your sense of ownership and responsibility, it would be great to hear from you, what you believe prepared you for the sort of autonomous leadership that you've embodied. What was it that happened in the system, that prepared you for this leadership and for the autonomy that you've been able to wield in your school, in the school leadership? You're muted, Phuti.
Well, there's something that triggered my mind to say, here I'm going to apply autonomous leadership by conducting situational analysis around that community before I start my leadership work. It actually gave me power to say, you know what? I'm going to lead from the position of authentic passion. I'm not going to lead from appointed power.
Phuti, sorry if I might interrupt you there. Sorry to interrupt. I wonder if were you trained on doing that sort of situational assessment that you conducted in the, where did that come from? Was it innate, or was there something that happened through your training? Like, what was it that prepared you for that?
I did it, just on my own. I didn't follow any framework of some sort. Just through my thinking that I cannot work with the people that I don't know. I must know them first before I work with their children. I must know this village first before we work with their children, so that whatever we do in the classroom, it matches with what they need. Actually empower. My aim was to empower both the community and the learners. Why? Because most of the community members were unemployed, but there are certain projects that were implemented in the schoolyard for the parents to come and render services and get some stipend at the end of the day. Well, I cannot go through that way. I want to emphasize this technology thing. But there is this thing that leadership, titles don't make leaders. Actions do. So from that perspective, after partnering with University of Limpopo, the nearby university, a primary school in a university, learners are primary school learners during the week. During the weekend, they are students, the university students. So from there, they learned on how to Skype. Remember that before Teams, before Google, before Zoom, before this and that, we used Skype. Our learners were able to be taught remotely by other international teachers. They were able to remote with to learn, to collaborate remotely with global schools. And from there, I taught them on how to create their emails. Some 18 years back, even today in their working field, there are still emails that they created 18 years back.
Thank you so much, Phuti.
Leadership works wonders.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Phuti. And we're now receiving questions from the audience. Please do send your questions in. I have a question from Shuaib, and I think it's a perfect way to carry on from where Phuti stopped. Really, Shuaib says, I believe school leadership in particular is a form of leadership that really isn't for everyone. It seems like that could be true. I wonder what sort of personality traits should a school leader have, in your experience and opinion, which sets them up for success within themselves and with everything on the outside? I would have Kiran, sort of share her reflections on that question, and maybe also Iwan, if you have any thoughts on that too.
What is a personality type? Be shameless. Well, I think it's just, I think so much of what Phuti says, you have to have a deep empathy and authentic, sort of leadership, moral authority. So I feel a combination of that also for autonomy does require a certain shamelessness, a certain courage to be able to hold on and back the decisions you make, because very often leaders succumb to the pressure. And the moment you start succumbing to the pressure, then anybody can push you here and there. So I find that many leaders tend to get into the mindset of pleasing the parents, And like what Iwan was saying, your focus has to be students all the time. But the moment we shift up to the pressure of parents, then we succumb to that. And then very often that reduces, diminishes our own autonomy and authority or as leaders. So I find some of the personality traits that I've seen, not only what I've experienced personally and also seen in some of the leadership I've been inspired by, is a sense of quiet confidence, deep empathy. That's always a starting point. I've not seen a single leader who does the work that they do that doesn't have empathy. So I think empathy is such a true starting point. We must start with love. We must start with understanding. And I think that's crucial in leadership. But you must also back it with deep courage, you know. And I think therein where the differentiating that Iwan said about managers versus leaders, that comes from courage. You know, managers don't need courage. They just need, but leaders need to have that deep sense of courage and a sense of humor. That's always, you know,
Thank
because,
you.
because the work we do is tough, but to be able to inspire, add a little bit of love, these are very strong ingredients. But I'll just add one other thing that I've learned, that the kind of leadership that is required in schools comes from three spaces. I call it the trinity of leadership. One, of course, is the visionary leader, the person who constantly reminds you of the just cause. Where are we all working towards? There is deep need for vision and visionary leadership. Then there is deep need for instructional leadership, the person who teaches you the what and the how. And how does that come, that vision get translated on a daily basis in your class, in your space with the parents? What's that instruction looks like? And the third is administrative leadership, the oil that makes all of this function. And very often, a single person doesn't embody all of these traits, but a space needs that. And often become administrators and not either instructional or visionary. So I find schools become sort of places where the status quo is more likely to be run because it's difficult to push that, because there is visionary or instruction. I find that often we don't recognize the need for the sort of leadership that schools need. I would say all spaces need this. So that's something that I've learned over the years.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those insights. I'm going to move on to Iwan now. And there's a question from Fuziai. And he's asking, in your opinion, what are the most effective strategies to build trust between district officers, policymakers, and school leaders? And how does this influence a school leader's ability to make autonomous, impactful decisions that benefit their school community? I would also like for you to maybe share your perspectives on, I mean, a number of the things that Kiran has mentioned and qualities, how does system recruit or identify, the leaders, like those leaders who exhibit those qualities? Like any, thoughts on that would also be helpful. Over to you, Iwan.
Well, to be able to create a new generation of leaderships to be change agents, I think we need to, and every system should have like a leadership, the new leadership training that gives this kind of orientation. And to come to this leadership training, I think we've learned from a lot of studies. It should be by intrinsic motivation, not because you are told to register, but because you want to be involved. There is a assessment process in this quite rigorous. In our case, it's actually more rigorous than the assessment to be civil servant. So it's super tough. But once you are accepted, there are a lot of like really powerful learning happens. There are three models: change yourself first, and then change your classroom, and change the school and community. So it starts from changing yourself. And I would like to say five actually qualities on top of what Kiran what mentioned was quite comprehensive actually, but I just want to add five. The first one is a leader should have the mindset of problem solver. So I think what Phuti was saying earlier in the first part, that doesn't feel like the power empowered to find solutions even with a lot of challenges and limitations. That's number one. And the way to problem solve should be number two, collaboration. Leadership leaders should not feel alone. And the way you do collaboration with the egalitarian spirit. Egalitarian means maybe in the literatures like shared leadership or distributed leadership. So it's not all bottlenecking to you. Like you can share this with other colleagues. And number four, leaders should be a learner because you have to think about possible solutions. And number five, the most fundamental of all, the disposition as a leader still the same, student first and foremost in any decision making. So these are like the five qualities leaders and change agents from our experience, in addition to what Kiran was saying. And the question about building trust between central government, district office, and also school principal, that's not easy because for us, we have 552 these autonomous local governments, right? So, and we have 400,000 of schools. So you can imagine it's so difficult. But I think what has helped us in our journey so far, especially in the past 5 years, is that purpose alignment. I think this is where you can build trust when we understand together this is where we're going. So in every consultation, in every discussion, in every negotiation, we keep re-emphasizing, reminding, okay, by the way, this is where we are going to go. And the local government or district offices have this because we feel like we are empathy to them. They feel, oh, we can be trusted. The central government can be trusted. And with the platform, technology platform, it actually goes directly to the principals. It doesn't go to like local government first, like the previous system with letter, and then the letter is from district office to school. No, with technology, schools, even teachers and parents can also see where we are going. So therefore, the whole community, we call this the ecosystem approach, have like a similar kind of orientation and can remind each other. So I think that is very, very important. I think in communication, you need to not only communicate, over-communicate the purpose again and again. And we have technology and that can make the ecosystem work kind of like the alignment. So.
Thank you so much, Iwan. And I love how you've just emphasized the, just the need to over communicate. Like it's just not enough to communicate, but then doing it over and over again to really build that trust and that deep alignment. And I think that is where a lot of us, fail. And I just like how you're reiterating that. I have another question. There are lots of questions here, and I'll try as much as possible to take as many as possible. But there's a question from Rakesh, and I would pose this question perhaps maybe to Kiran, and then I'll come to you, Phuti. But from your experience, Kiran, which global South country has done the best job of setting up policy and practice environment that is clear on purpose and encourages leaders and teachers to have agency in relation to realizing that purpose? What was critical to making that policy reform and government uptake come about? I love this question. Kiran, any thoughts or reflections on this?
Maybe I don't have as much knowledge of how the government saw policy. I think maybe Iwan would have more. But in my limited experience of just traveling across and seeing forward-thinking work that is being done at a systems level. Of course, the classic examples would be, of course, Singapore, and you'll have Vietnam coming up very strong now as a case study. I know what Iwan was saying. Indonesia is now really moving the needle over there as well. So I would say these are some examples where the size really helps. I mean, if I look at like a place like Vietnam, I've just come back from Bhutan, and there's tremendous focus on the idea of how you can get an idea of education that is built on mindfulness and care across the school system, because they have 500 schools, and it's such a joy to say, oh, okay. I mean, that's like taking care of the entire nation. So I feel size is such a great aspect of looking at it. Of course, in India, there would be certain states that have done better jobs than others. So I find that scale is great, but it also brings us challenges for the kind of shifts and changes that we have to make. But I've often also seen the beautiful idea of codification of ideas and saying, okay, this concept has worked here and one must amplify it. So the idea of identifying, codifying, and amplifying, that I think I've seen specifically happening now in Bhutan, in certain states in India. I see that in Vietnam, and I understand in Indonesia that's strong as well. So I would say, yeah, these are some case studies that I've been inspired by.
Thank you. Iwan, any comments or any contributions to that?
I think I don't know the data, like the comparative data on this, which countries, but I think my sense is from my interaction in international communities, like including UNESCO, UNICEF, and also the G20. I think more and more system leaders are trying to innovate with new ideas, especially leveraging technology, right, for reaching the ideals. And I think more and more countries also start to think about how to develop the human capital that ready for like the next era, which is the AI era, and also climate change. That's also very close and dear to many of the system leaders' heart. And I think for us in Indonesia, we are still at the very fixing the foundation, right? So we need after COVID, because the recovery is the focus of many countries. And hopefully together we can learn and share and collaborate on how to innovate. Because when you say each country like Kiran was saying, like going to Bhutan, like suddenly it's a totally different environment. And in Bhutan, there are a lot of variation, just like in India, in Indonesia, Nigeria. So I think we need to really like think about not one bullet, like what you call silver bullet for everything in each country. So when you say each country, there's a lot of variation there. And I think maybe different parts of in each country can be inspirations for others. So I think the most important part for us now is to open the dialogues and communications with each other and learn from each other and allow within our system to experiment with these new ideas, not like a one uniform way for everything. I think the danger is actually when a country just decides on just one size fits all approach. I think that's a sign of like going backwards.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to ask Phuti, just coming to you now. There's one question that I really want to ask you, and then we'll need to wrap up because we're now running out of time. Phuti, there's a question from Hamang Nicholas. I hope I didn't murder your name. Awesome platform indeed. I wish, okay, this comes regularly, and a task for GSL team. My question to you is, can you elaborate on the challenges that you came across with autonomous leadership, if there were any, and how did you deal with them in your leadership? Phuti, if you could share in 1 minute, and then we'll wrap up with closing remarks. Please unmute, Muti, we can hear you.
I came across a lot of challenges. I was isolated by my leaders to say, you introducing projects and resources that are not mandated in the school policies. I felt, I was given a lot of derogative names. Mrs. I know, I was given, I was alone. I was unpopular. And at some times, I doubted myself as whether I'm okay in upstairs. Why am I doing things that others are not doing? Why am I coming up with projects that others are not doing? So I'm that kind of a person who doesn't want to follow something just slavishly slow. I'm that kind of a person who believes in the approach of bottom-up approach, from the bottom-up approach. I don't believe in top-down approach. I believe in mutual sort of working together. Time and again, we are being instructed, yet we are the ones who are down here, who knows everything or what is happening. So there were a lot of challenges, but the challenges came up with a cherry on top. In 2023, the president of the country, President Cyril Ramaphosa, awarded me with an order of Baobab for the powerful and the vision that I had for so many years about empowering teachers and learners and the neighboring schools with resources in teaching and learning. So it's not easy, but it needs somebody who has what? The courage, resistance, somebody who has the teamwork spirit. We were 39 teachers in the schoolyard. We were like sisters. We were thinking the same. So there were a lot of teamwork spirit.
Fantastic.
So that's it.
Thank you so much, Phuti. And I hear you on courage and resilience and, also community of other people who are doing similar work to just support each other, and give and sort of rub off on each other's strength. So thank you so much for sharing that. I would also just have you quickly, Phuti, in 30 seconds, we've had such a great audience interacting, as you think about today and, your biggest takeaway, what do you want to leave the audience with in not more than 60 seconds, Phuti?
I like to say every great story happened when someone decided not to give up. We started as few people at the beginning, some 19 years back, we were very few who were thinking about integrating technology, teaching and learning with technology tools. Today, we are many who want to know what is this case all about. We want to create some case studies. So every great story happened when someone decided not to give up. So don't give up in whatever you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Phuti. Kiran, your parting words, biggest takeaway for the audience. Yeah.
I think, what are you in service of? I think always remember that. What is your daily, when you show up, what are you in service of? And if that service is about a better vision of humanity, better vision of children, a better vision of a world, that's such a powerful reason to wake up every day. So if one can have a grand purpose, a just purpose, that's a lovely reason to wake up and show up.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Iwan, over to you.
Okay, I'll leave three things. First, leaders are change agents. And meaning I underline the word change. So now my number one is about change, number two is about change, number three is about change. So leaders are change agents. We cannot afford status quo. Number two, to be able to do change, we should be comfortable with the uncomfortable. If we're not comfortable with the uncomfortable, it means change is not happening. So, and number three, change takes time. So be patient. It's like the law of diffusion of innovation in the Rogers. So like the first adopters, early adopters, 20%, that is your magic formula. So don't worry if 80% are still not on board with change. It will go there, but you need to focus on the first 20%. And then you get the late adopters, 60%. And the third category, the last 20% is the laggers. No matter what you do, they will not likely to change. And it's okay. It's very natural for that. So be empathetic with the change process. It takes time, but you need patience for that. But again, our students cannot afford if we stay in the status quo. So we need to invest in leaders as change agents for the sake of our future, like Kiran was saying. Our students, yes, we cannot let them down. So we need to do something about that.
Amazing, amazing. You will
Yeah.
all agree with me that our speakers here today have been phenomenal. Thank you so much, Iwan, Kiran, Phuti, for all your contributions. And thank you so much to the GSL team for organizing and putting this summit together. Lots of nuggets. And just really to sum it up, I mean, I do think everything that was shared here, starting with what are you in service for? Like that's just really aligning and keying into that higher purpose. It's super important and really inspiring to wake up to every single day and not giving up. I do think that Phuti's journey and experience really embodies, resilience, courage, and just the power of not giving up. And of course, living here today, recognizing that leaders, you are change agents. Like you're just not officials or technical support staff in schools, but you are indeed change agents. And so you cannot stay in, the status quo. You should be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And finally, change does take time. So you really need to be patient and find your tribe of people and community who are all doing incredible work. Collaborate with them, tap into their strength and into their inspiration. But once again, thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. Over to you, Avni.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Folawe, for moderating this panel and doing such a beautiful job with that. And thank you, Kiran, Iwan, and Phuti for joining this panel. We really missed Herbert's perspective. He had connectivity issues, but hopefully we'll find another opportunity soon. I absolutely love that we were able to hear from both school leaders and government on this idea that we kept coming back to, of the idea of courage and patience to lead change in service of children. It's so right. And I love this call to action. So today, this is the end of our programming for today, but the summit is not over. We have 2 more days of sessions. You can check our social media to see the full lineup, and you can see the link in the chat to sign up for our first session tomorrow. We hope to see you soon. Huge thank you again to our full panel for being here and to all of you for engaging and for your great questions and conversation. We hope to see you soon.